With cyber threats evolving at an alarming rate, organizations face an ever-present need to safeguard their sensitive data and critical system. Today, let's delve into a crucial aspect of cybersecurity, securing privileged accounts. We have Mortada Ayad, Director of Sales Engineering at Delinea, joining us to share his insights on this topic. Thank you for joining with us, Ayad.
Thank you, Aya, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure as well. So, on this topic, why is securing privileged accounts crucial for the aspect of cybersecurity?
It's a very good question, and I'd like to start by taking a step back. I usually tell organizations and I ask them, what do they fear the most, right? And usually the first answer that comes is they are afraid of cybersecurity or cyber incident, right? Because we've seen in the past 5 years that cyber incidents has become the #1 cause of, interruption, business interruption for organizations. So they fear that. And when you dig into this and you see what are the cause of cyber incidents, you would see that it's usually most of the time a privileged account that has been compromised, an endpoint that has been also compromised, or an insider threat, right? So cyber incidents becoming the #1 security risk and privileged accounts becoming the first cause of cyber incidents, it's easy to link everything right together. So it's obvious now to see that when you compromise a privileged account, you get access to what we say the keys of the kingdom, right? So you can do anything you want. And because these accounts that are super powerful exist everywhere in the organization, they are sometimes unmanaged and inventoried and controlled. So they become a key element to securing, in cybersecurity today.
Okay, so in this context, what are some of the key challenges that organizations are facing?
That's interesting, and it's broad. It's not only in the region, it's everywhere. When we talk about privileged account, we're talking about assets or accounts here that are used by very, let's say, important population in an organization, IT admins, right?
Okay.
So these users are super critical for an organization to function, right? And the main challenge of implementing these accounts or securing these accounts is first that most of the time they are not inventoried properly in the organization, or they are managed by individuals, right? So everybody has their own sets of accounts and they are managing them, on their side, and you don't have visibility on what they are doing with these accounts. So how are they using it, what they are doing when they connect to a systems. So the visibility is probably the biggest challenge that you have to address. Every organization that doesn't have a solution to manage privileged account, when you ask them, do you have visibility about what is done with these accounts? The answer would probably be no, or we would like to have it, or we don't have enough visibility for this. So by doing this, you get now, by implementing a solution that can control security access to these accounts, protect them, and give you that full auditing and full visibility, you close a big gap in your cybersecurity, let's say, strategy in the organization.
Okay, makes perfect sense. So, like every technology, there might be some misconceptions. So,
Yes.
what, according to you, are the major misconceptions in this?
The first one is an underestimation about the number of accounts that exist, right? So usually I see an organization that has 20, 50 times the number of employees as privileged accounts, right?
Okay.
So that's huge. Depending on the type of organization you're running, you have to understand that every single employee has at least one machine that they connect to. That machine has a privileged account. And then you have your network devices, your applications, your servers, your cloud solutions. So it's usually minimum between 2 and 3 times, right, the number of employees. And then these accounts are sometimes overprivileged. It's very difficult to get a clear understanding about which permission does this account have, right? So we give them more permission than they actually need to do some task that would actually require these permissions, right? An example, very basic, if a user wants to change the time on their machine or wants to install a printer on their laptop, they need to have admin privileges,
Yes.
right? But there is no way to give them only the privileges for
Yes.
that specific task,
Yes.
right? So they get the privilege on all the
Of
machine.
all.
Exactly. So that's one of the first challenges that you see, or misconceptions about privilege account. The other part now about this is that because you don't know where they are used, you don't know when they are used and what they are used for, you get blindsided sometimes by these kind of misusage of the solution, right? So, for instance, or let's say an administrator leave the organization. How would you know which account they have with them, right?
Yeah.
How do you know if they have not created any local account on the machine, or they have some credentials that are not controlled globally, and how you're going to be restricting this access. So these are, usually common challenges that we see, or misconceptions that we have around privileged accounts.
Okay, so in your years of experience in the network security, how does securing privileged accounts contribute to the holistic and robust cybersecurity of an organization?
That's the best question, I would say, because yes, my background is true, and I'm coming from a pure network security background. And having worked for 6 years now into securing privileged accounts gave me a different perspective. And I can tell you something for sure, it's the foundation of everything, right? Usually when we speak with organizations that are building, let's say, new systems, new infrastructure, new data centers, right? You have solutions that will make sense to be deployed at the end. Like, I'm just giving an example, a SIM solution, because it requires data from all the systems. But the PAM solution is a solution that you want to be building and set up at the beginning, because every system that you're going to be adding to this infrastructure will have privileged accounts. And you want to onboard this privileged account as soon as possible in the PAM solution. That's the first key element, right? So really, privileged accounts are, because they are everywhere, because they represent the key to the kingdom, because they are unmanaged or uncontrolled, they must be secure as the first element of your infrastructure. And it doesn't mean much, it just means putting in place, if you don't have a PAM solution, it means putting in place some control and process to secure those accounts. For example, setting up a mandatory rotation of the passwords every X days or every month, right? So that will just make sure that if the accounts are compromised, they will be secure because the password will be rotated. So the fact that they have been breached is not an issue, right? That's the first thing. Then what you can do also is keep in mind that when you secure a privileged account and you have that visibility, you prevent incident from happening, because you know immediately what has happened, or incident from growing too big, because you know exactly what has happened, because you have that auditing, you have that video recording, that monitoring of the session of the administrator, so you know what they did and you can quickly resolve issue. All right. Now, this brings me to the way you implement that, because now we know that it's very important. How do you implement that properly? What are the best practices of implementing this solution? And that I'm going to be speaking to all my colleagues, my IT admins colleagues. And I always say this, and I'm very candid about this. I tell my customers that when they implement the PAM solution, they implement something for the most difficult population that they have in the organization, IT admins. We don't like control, right? We always think that if some control is implemented, it will be restricting us, it will be removing some permissions that we have, some power, right? So it's a DNA thing for IT admin, and I laugh about it, but it's true, right? So communication first is very important. You have to explain that implementing a PAM solution is not to play the police for the administrators, right? It's to, on the contrary, it's to protect them, because when an incident happens, if we don't know what that admin has been doing on the system, then how would you not point finger at him if something happened on the system he's connecting to, right? That's the first thing. So usually the best thing to do when you implement a PAM solution is to have that phased approach. The first thing you do is that you onboard all your accounts, you onboard all your privileges into the system. You get an inventory of what's happening. You let your users use these accounts as they used to be in the past, because we just want to know who is adapting to the new tool and who is not. Right? And then after a few weeks, you can identify the users that don't want to be in the solution, and then you can talk to them, right? After that period, you start now closing some doors. Basically, you prevent the users from knowing the passwords. That's the only way for them to not go through your solution. If they know the password, they can bypass it. But if they don't know, they'll have to go through the solution. So by doing this, by implementing this phase approach, slowly and slowly, you will get that adoption of the solution by your users, which is the key element. I always say, if you want to have a successful implementation, your key element is not how many percentage of accounts you have onboarded on your system, etc. It's the adoption of the tool by your users, right? So usually I say you give it let's say 6, 8, 12 weeks of adaptation to your users, and then you go. I'll tell you a story about an organization that contacted us to replace an existing solution, right? And they said, yes, we had an incident. The administrators could not connect to the system to execute an emergency task, right? Instead of doing that specific action in 2 minutes, it took him 5 times more.
Oh God.
Right? So the incident got bigger, and then that put a very bad spotlight on the solution. But I had to be honest with them. I said, there is nothing wrong with the tools you have in place. I would love to take this, right? I would love to do it. But there is nothing wrong. It's wrong. The thing that is wrong is the way you have done it, because the administrators are not familiar with the tool. He didn't know how to do it. While it was properly implemented, that's what caused the bad publicity on the existing tool. Eventually you change because the customer was not assisted properly when implementing the solution. This is where the expertise of the vendors, of the system integrator is very important, because there is a methodology to implement which is as important as the actual tool. And that's where we brought, let's say, the value, and we fixed the solution for the company, because we trained the employees, the users, to know to use the tool properly.
So thank you so much. That was a perfect wrap to everything securing privileged accounts, and it was really good with the example as well.
My pleasure.
It was really great having you here, and thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you again.
And that's it for today. And for everything tech and anything cybersecurity, stay tuned to Edge Middle East.